Leadoff. We'd like to get some help on the show, and now we're joined by a former NFL quarterback and two-time Super Bowl champion, Charlie Batch. You joined us in New Orleans last year. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
You made the cut. That's just
I
listen, a lot of guys didn't get the call back.
Audition.
You got the call back.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, being a two-time Super Bowl champ, I mean, what's this whole week like leading up as a player?
Well, when you go through it multiple times, you get used to it. But the very first time, nobody knew what to expect going through. We only had one person on that team in 2005 that literally went to the Super Bowl, and that was Willie Williams, which lost it in the 1995 Super Bowl with the Steelers. So 52 guys were just excited to go through it. You knew you were going to get multiple questions, but at the same time, you know, you just didn't know what to expect. And everybody embraced it, but you do have some weird questions that do come about.
What about, I mean, so much talk about the weather constantly, but then Bart Scott on Tops today made a really good point. He's like, the players don't care. Like, we're here to play. We're going to go out and do our routine. I mean, how much do you think about weather, you know, in a cold weather city like New York?
Really, there's only two teams that are upset, and that's the ones that are playing.
Right, exactly.
So, and I don't even think that you think of it being upset. That means if you're playing in this game, that means you have a chance to at least win a championship. So players aren't concerned about the weather.
All right, let's go through the quarterbacks, obviously your field of expertise. Russell Wilson hasn't been as sharp of late.
Right.
Now, look, he makes some plays with his feet and then, you know, buys some time in a different fashion, but similar to Ben Roethlisberger, who, of course, you backed up the last couple of years. I'm wondering, though, about Russell Wilson and what you think, if you were in his ear as his backup, as his mentor, what you would tell him thinking about going into this game.
Just relax. Have fun. Go out there and make plays the way that you've been doing it really since you came into this league. He has 23, maybe 24 victories since he came into the National Football League. I mean, that's impressive by itself. Don't worry about outside distractions. Just continue to play your game. As long as you don't turn the football over, which he hasn't done, you know, they could be able to at least keep his team competitive.
There's also some windows, supposedly, in MetLife to which it's really hard to throw there with the wind. Peyton Manning's done a lot of things. He does not have a great arm, and he has been affected by the wind. Would that affect your play calling if you were the play caller, if you were Peyton, or advising him as to what they can do against the Seahawks defense?
Well, a lot of that comes down to which way is it shifting, because you get a sense of it during pregame. The kickers go out early. They'll let you know. And I would always go out early, and I would let Ben know, hey, the wind is blowing a little bit more this direction, so be careful if you're throwing the ball down the field because it would tend to drift. So you'll get a sense of that during pregame, maybe as the game goes on, but you do have a sense of that as far as, you know, as the game goes on.
All right, speaking of Big Ben, since you brought it up, kind of elephant in the room is Pittsburgh. There's been some beef in the past between Todd Haley and Ben Roethlisberger. There's been talk about, hey, is Ben Roethlisberger here for good? Would they move him and kind of press reset? What are your thoughts about the future of Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh?
Well, you can't hit the reset button yet, because right now Ben is your guy and you don't have a viable replacement behind him. So you have to figure out, if I'm Coach Tomlin, I need to figure out what way to keep this guy around. I went to 3 Super Bowls. You know, he went to 3 Super Bowls with 2 with Coach Tomlin, and you win 1. So you have to keep this guy, even though the cap number says elsewhere. But right now, you know, it's just something that, to a point, you need to figure it out, get this situation done, but you have to keep Ben in Pittsburgh, and I expect them to be in Pittsburgh wholeheartedly next year.
Quick question about the Steelers' future. You lose 3 coaches in 12 months, 21 unrestricted free agents on this team. After this season, I mean, coming into next year, how far away are they from being contenders again?
Well, right now you're an 8-8 football team, back-to-back 8 wins. And, you know, coming into this season, there was a lot of change that went on. Kevin Colbert, the general manager, he said, hey, they were all part of an 8-8 football team. We had to let them go. So now what happens, you know, as you talk about transition, a lot of the names that you became familiar with over the last 7-8 years are now getting older. Now you're going to have to move on. But what young guys do you have to replace them? And I think this is where you start to see, you know, front office having to make those hard decisions when it comes to the players to keep around. But I think ultimately they will be competitive. I don't know if they're Super Bowl competitive.
You talked about a hard decision. It's going to be a hard decision for this Hall of Fame committee with Jerome Bettis. There's the thought there's 3 kind of those elite running backs they would get in some order. Marshall Faulk got in first. And then, of course, you have Curtis Martin got in. And now it's Jerome Bettis. Do you believe, I know he's a Steeler, I know you're a Steeler, but when you're playing with him, did you believe he was a Hall of Famer?
I did believe when we were playing together. I was a big fan of his coming out. of Notre Dame, and even I was at Eastern Michigan at the time. His old coach, Ron Cooper, was there. So he came to Eastern Michigan. I had a chance to meet him. But going and having an opportunity to play with him, I mean, he was one of the guys who put a lot of work into it. He is very well deserving. And, of course, I'm going to be biased because he is a Steeler. But when you look at his numbers, finishing 5th all-time NFL leading rusher, I mean, that's very impressive by itself. Now he's 6, and he's been out the league now for 6-7 years.
What I think people remember about you is you come from a family that it was about education. And you've had this foundation now for, what, 14 years?
Yes.
14 years. For people who haven't followed your foundation and what you're trying to do with your post-career life, take me through what you started with and where you are now.
17 years ago, I lost my sister to senseless gun violence. She was shot and killed in the side of the, she caught between crossfire between rival gangs, and she was shot in the head and killed instantly. And she was 17 years old. And at that point, I said, if I was ever in position to give back, I would. And I got drafted in 1998 by Detroit. In 1999, I started my foundation. And, you know, at that point, it was trying to figure out a way to get these kids off the street. Lo and behold, Pittsburgh, I got there in 2002. I thought that would be my only year. So I really redirected all my foundation goals back to Pittsburgh. We continuously help uplift community kids through sports and education. We use sports to draw the kids in, but at the same time, we're able to implement any educational component that we choose. And over the years, we just kept growing and growing and growing. And now we touch over 2,300 kids annually. We actually have middle school and high school taught in our building daily with the alternative school program. So it's just really, you know, special to really see these kids because, you know, it's kids who are 7 years old are now going into college. You know, we're just like, wow, you know, to be able to see that. And I think one of the things that's special because NFL Films actually did a piece on my career and foundation, and it was called Portraits of Pride. And with all the people that they had to choose from and all the stories that are around, they chose me. And they spent time over this off season here, and they really filmed and they showed what we were doing. And I actually have it on my website, which is charliebatch.com. And if you scroll right down in the middle, you'll be able to see the link that says Portraits of Pride, and you'll be able to click and see that story.
And then, of course, the foundation is batch.org, right?
Batchfoundation.org.
Batchfoundation.org or charliebatch.com.
Yes.
It's always great to catch up with you, and I promise you'll make the cut next year as we head to Northern California. Thanks so much.
I appreciate that.
You're
Thank
hope
you.
to a lot of kids
Two-time
out there.
Super Bowl
It's awesome.
champion Charlie Batch. Coming up, LeBron James would like a word with the new commissioner, Adam Silver. The new commish wants to hear from LBJ in regards to the NBA. It's next. Capiche? This is Leadoff. That was really bad.